Sophia was 19 years old and had been working as a domestic helper in a middle-class house in Karachi for 2 years when she began, quietly, to believe that she could learn English. Nobody had told her she could. In fact, an English teacher at the small government school she had attended until she was 13 had once told her, in front of the whole class, that she was not the kind of girl who was going to learn English, and that she should focus on the things she was actually good at, which he specified as neither cooking nor cleaning, but seemed to imply were somewhere in that direction. Sophia had believed him for 6 years. On the day she stopped believing him, she was standing in a kitchen with a broom in her hand, and the youngest child of the house, a boy of 7 named Zane, had walked in and asked her in perfect English whether she had seen his small red car. She had not understood the question. She had smiled. She had continued sweeping. The boy had waited patiently, then repeated the question, then finally switched to a small, careful Urdu that his mother had taught him for exactly these moments. "Have you seen my car?" Sophia had said in Urdu that she had seen it under the sofa in the sitting room. Zane had thanked her in English and had run out. Sophia had stood in the kitchen for a long time after that. She did not know at the time that she had believed 8 things all her life which were not true. She only knew that she was tired of being the person in the room who understood nothing. The family whose house she cleaned spoke English at home. The mother was a warm, careful woman who worked as a school teacher and who ran the household in a small, warm mixture of English and Urdu. The 2 children spoke English to each other in the way children of educated parents in Karachi did, effortlessly and without noticing, as though it was the same language as their laughter. Sophia had, for 2 years, lived inside their English without ever entering it. She had a cheap phone with a small monthly data allowance her older brother paid for. That afternoon on the bus home, she typed into her phone, for the first time in her life, the words how to learn English. Millions of small videos appeared. She watched one on the bus, then another, then another. She watched a warm young man from Karachi teach small English sentences with an accent that was not British and not American, but was clearly and warmly Pakistani. She watched an older Indian woman explain that most people who thought they were bad at languages had only ever been bad at trying. She watched a young British teacher say, kindly, that a person's accent was not a problem but a fingerprint. Everyone had one. It only had to be understood, not erased. Sophia sat on the bus that evening with her small phone warm in her hand and understood that she had been carrying a very heavy stone for 6 years, and that the stone had never been necessary. The next morning she began. She did not tell anyone. She did not have books. She did not have a course. She had a broom, a cloth, a bucket, a small phone, and a household full of English she had, until that moment, treated as background noise. She began by naming things aloud quietly in English as she cleaned. This is the sofa. This is the table. This is the vase. This is the mango. This is the small red car under the sofa. When she did not know a word, she wrote it down phonetically in Urdu script on a small piece of paper in her pocket and looked it up on her phone on the bus home. She did not spend a single rupee on English. She had once believed that English was a language for people whose families could afford small, expensive classes at small, expensive centers. She was, quietly, watching that belief break. She kept her small phone in her apron pocket and played slow English podcasts through one earphone as she worked. The mother of the house noticed after a week. She said, kindly in Urdu, "Sophia, are you listening to English?" Sophia said yes. She said it in English. The mother's face changed slightly. Not in a dramatic way, only a small warm shift, the way a door opens when a person has knocked for the first time. The mother said in slow English then, "Would you like me to help you sometimes?" Sophia said, "Yes, please." The mother smiled and went back to her marking. From that Monday, the mother of the house began to leave the small children with Sophia for 20 minutes each afternoon while she made tea, on the small condition that Sophia would speak to them, however slowly, in English. Sophia was terrified for the first 3 days. The children did not seem to notice her mistakes. They laughed when she used the wrong word. They corrected her warmly in the way small children correct anyone. She said once mistakenly, "The cat is under the sky," and Zane laughed until he fell off his chair, and then explained with the small, serious face of a 7-year-old that she probably meant the sun. Sophia laughed too. She had learned, quietly, that grammar mistakes were not the tragedy she had been told they were. They were only small openings for conversation. She had once believed she needed to sound like an English person before she could speak. She noticed, over those afternoons, that the mother spoke with a Karachi accent, and that the boy spoke with a slight Karachi accent too, and that both were understood perfectly by everyone in the family, and by the British aunt who called on video every Sunday, and by the American friend who occasionally came for tea. Sophia stopped trying to sound like anyone. She only tried to be understood. It turned out to be almost enough. She had once believed she needed to travel abroad to be immersed in English. She noticed, one evening while listening to the children argue with each other about a video game, that she was already immersed. She had been immersed for 2 years. She had simply, until now, kept the immersion outside herself. She had once believed that only children learned languages easily. She noticed, at the end of her 3rd month, that Zane, the 7-year-old, had learned a new set of English words that week, and that she had learned roughly the same number, and that hers were more useful because they were connected to the small, real objects of her working day. She was, in some ways, learning faster than the boy. She had more reason to remember. She had once believed that watching English alone would slowly turn her into an English speaker. She had watched, over her lifetime, roughly 800 hours of English film and television without ever getting better at English. She learned in her 4th month that watching without speaking was like eating without swallowing. She began, every night on the bus home, to say aloud, softly, what she had learned that day. Nobody on the bus seemed to mind. She had, in the eyes of Karachi, become another young woman muttering to herself on public transport, which is a very common and very safe kind of person to be. She had once believed that confidence had to come first, and that speaking would follow. She noticed, one Wednesday afternoon, that she had somehow spoken warmly to the mother of the house for a full 10 minutes about the small events of the day, and that she had not, at any point during those 10 minutes, felt confident. She had felt terrified. She had spoken anyway. Confidence, she began to understand, was not a door she was going to walk through. It was a small, warm room she was going to build behind her, one imperfect sentence at a time. She had once believed she had no natural talent for languages. She stopped believing that in her 6th month, when she caught herself, at the vegetable market, describing a bunch of coriander to the seller in her own head in English. She had not asked her head to do this. It had simply done it warmly, without permission. At the end of her 1st year of quiet practice, the mother of the house asked her, gently one evening, whether she had ever considered training to be a live-in nanny for a small English-speaking family. It was a step up. It paid more. It required good spoken English. Sophia said yes in slow, calm English and thanked her warmly and did not cry until she was on the bus home. She began a new position at a house 2 months later, caring for a small girl of 4 whose parents spoke English at home and were away for long working hours. She was paid 3 times what she had been paid before. She spoke to the small girl in English every day. She read her English books at bedtime. She corrected her own mistakes when she noticed them without shame. She continued watching her small, quiet videos on her cheap phone on the bus each morning. 2 years later, a younger girl on her street, a girl of 17 named Amina who had left school at 14 to work, and who thought her English was going to remain frozen forever, sat with Sophia at the corner tea stall one evening and asked her, in a small, tired voice, whether it was possible for a girl like them to learn a language like that. Sophia thought for a long moment. She looked at Amina, who reminded her painfully of a version of herself. Yes, she said, there are things people will tell you that are not true, that you need money, that you need talent, that you need to sound like someone else, that you must have perfect grammar before you speak, that you must live abroad, that you are too old at 17, that you must feel confident first, that watching alone will be enough. She counted them softly on her fingers, 8 things. Every one of them a wall you can walk through if you know it is only paint. She said, use your small phone, talk to yourself in English while you work, speak to the children in the houses you clean, do not be afraid of your accent, do not wait until you feel ready. Practice in front of the vegetables at the market if you have no one else. Amina frowned, that is all, she said. Sophia smiled the small smile